Hello my crafty friends, it's Andrea from Prairie Sky Paper Crafts. Today we are doing some background techniques and I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to do it. Now last week I did this guy. It was the poll result from a poll on my Facebook page. I asked if people wanted to play with dragonflies or butterflies. And it was pretty much an even split. So the early responders mostly said butterfly, so I did this guy. Now I'm going to play with the dragonflies. So I've got the Dragonfly Punch and the Dragonfly Garden stamp set. I also have a piece of just acetate that I've cut down, and it's been really humid here the last few days, so I wanted to make sure that this was super dry. So I played with a few ideas yesterday because I wanted to make sure that they were nice and dry. These two I did on the Fluid 100 watercolor paper, and these two are just on the basic white, just the regular cardstock. So the basic white kind of seeps through, so you can pick your favorite side. The watercolor a little bit, but not so much. But I really like the texture on the watercolor paper, so that's what I'm going to be doing today. And I'm actually going to be creating a card with this one. So I'm going to show you how I did this first, and then we're going to transition into a different way of doing it. So what you're going to need for this is obviously the watercolor paper. I've got some reinkers. For this one, I'm using Pacific Point and Bermuda Bay. I've got a little teacup full of water. I've got my mister full of water, and I've also got Wink of Stella. Haven't quite decided what I'm going to do with her yet, but we'll see as we progress. Okay. So for this one, what I did was I ran the color, and I also used Night of Navy for this as well, and I kind of really like how it turned purple. If I can find my Night of Navy reinker, my cat likes to jump up on my desk, so I'm pretty sure she sent it flying somewhere, and I can't find it at the moment. Actually, right in front of me. So I'll use the Night of Navy as well, and I'll show you how I did this one first. So all I'm going to do is take my ink, my reinkers, and I'm going to give it a bit of a shake, and I'm just going to run it in a line. Not too thick, not too heavy, just kind of randomly wherever. This one is Pacific Point. I'm just going to do kind of a zigzag a little. And then this one, my Bermuda Bay. I'm going to do a line here. Actually kind of a little bit up here and a little bit here, I think. That looks good. And then what you're going to do is take your spritz bottle and spray your area. And you're going to see that the color is going to run. Now it is going to kind of do a bit of an overspray, so I highly suggest doing something to cover your area, your work area. And then I'm also going to give the paper a bit of a spritz. You can see some of the overspray has already hit the paper, so it's starting to run. And then I'm going to place it down, wet side down, onto my acetate. And you're probably going to get inky, not a big deal. It washes off, it's water soluble ink, so it washes off really easily with just some soap and some water. And then I'm just going to swirl it around just to kind of get it a little bit of texture and a little bit of pattern. And you can see some of the areas are going to be darker than others. So if you're not a fan of how that looks, I'm just going to soak this up. I love these bamboo paper towels. They are amazing. And I'm sure my daughter's going to want it for some sort of an art project when I'm finished with it. All right. So then, actually, we're going to see what Wink of Stella does with this. Oops. I'm just going to pull it off, and then I'm just going to do blops. And just kind of get it to run. Find my spray bottle again. came out a little heavier than I wanted it to. And then bring my cloth in again. Tap it off a bit. Ooh, that's really pretty. Okay, I'm just going to move this guy off to the side so that it can dry a bit. And then I'm going to flip over my acetate. I usually run it under the water when I'm finished with it, but I don't want any of the blue transferring to the other one. So for this one, oh, I've got ink everywhere. That's all right. It'll wash up quickly and fairly easily when I'm all done. Good excuse for a full craft room cleanup. Okay, for this one, I've got some Mary Merlot. I'm just going to color it on. I've got my markers here. So if you don't have reinkers, you can use the full stamp set and just kind of do either streaks of color or just mush it around on your work surface. Or you can use the markers as well. And I usually go a little bit bigger than what I'm actually going to use because actually it looks like Mary Merlot needs to be re-inked. I usually do it a little bit bigger of an area just so that you can ensure that your entire project is going to get coverage. All right, so that's done. I'm just going to put these guys back in their container. And for this one, I'm going to do a little sprinkling of Wink of Stella before I add the water. And we'll see what happens. This was just like a total last minute, see what happens and see where we go. Now we're going to get the spritz bottle out again and give it a bit of a spray. You want to make sure that all of your color, or most of your color at least, is starting to run a bit. And then we're going to spray our watercolor paper and then place it again face down onto our project sheet and then flip it over. Oops. It's a little bit more muted using the watercolor or the Stampin' Write markers just because with the reinker it's a lot more concentrated in quite a more concentrated area. I'm going to pick up some of the, there we go. Okay, now I'm going to move this off to the side after I soak up some of the ink. Okay. Now, okay, I'm just going to put these two project pieces off to dry, but I'm going to bring in this one first. So you can see when I did this one, there's some nice big splotches. So you can either take the wand out of the mister and just kind of flick it around your paper, or you can just dip your fingers in and kind of flick all over your project. And then as it dries, those areas are going to be a little bit more muted. All right, I should have grabbed a clean cloth. Oh well, that's what pant legs are for. Okay. So then I'm just going to give this guy a quick shot, and you can see how it's going to change as it dries. So you can see this spot here on the center, it's a little bit more faded, and around the edge you've got a little bit more of that water spot. So these guys are just going to go off to the side to dry, and then I'm going to bring in the piece that I did yesterday. Excuse me while I just reach for my embossing powder. Now I'm going to actually cut this and get 2 cards out of 1. Okay, so the width for this one is about 4 3/4. So I'm gonna do this one at 3 1/2, just so that I get a nice even border around, and then I'll use this little scrap piece for something else later. And I'm gonna leave this because I really kind of like that runny look. Actually, while I have my trimmer out, I've also got some vellum, and I'm just gonna cut probably about a 3-inch strip or so. Actually, you know what, let's do it card base. So I'm gonna cut it at 5.5 by 4 1/4. And then if I have anything left over, I might do something with it with this card as well. Okay. So I've got my stamp set. I'm going to use the larger Dragonfly for this one. Yeah, I'm going to use the larger one. And I'm going to do, it doesn't really matter what color you decide to stamp it in, but I'm going to do, I should have thought this one a little bit better. Actually, we'll use Pacific Point since I used that on my card base. And my stamp block for this guy. Right. Can't find my stamp block. I'll use another stamp pad. All right. So now I'm gonna drop it on my sheet. I'm just gonna push it down and pick it up. And then before it dries, it actually does take a bit of time to dry on the vellum because it's not a porous material. So I'm gonna bring in my silver embossing powder, and I'm just gonna run it through, and then I'm gonna tap it off and make sure that I have no extras on here. And then I'm gonna close my embossing powder so it doesn't hit the floor. And then I'm gonna bring in my heat tool and then just give it a bit of a spritz. And you can see how quickly your embossing powder is gonna dry. And then you're just gonna wanna let it sit for a second or two to cool off before you put it through the punch. Okay, now I'm gonna need to trim this guy because I stamped it the opposite way to what I needed it to go through my punch. Okay, I'm gonna do about 2 inches there. Okay, and then I'm just gonna feed it into the punch, line it up so that the wings are still there, and then just give it a press. Okay, so there's our dragonfly. Now I brought in 2 color options for my paper. I've got the Night of Navy and the Bermuda Bay, and what I think I'm going to do actually is Night of Navy as my 4 1/4 by 5.5 piece, and then the Bermuda Bay I'm going to do it 4 1/4, or sorry, 5 1/4 by 4. I'm just going to trim that up. And then we still have yeah. Okay. Actually, I think what we're gonna do is a bit of a torn edge with the vellum, just to give it a bit of interest as well, I think. Okay, I'm happy with the way that's gonna look. So now, grab my adhesive. Okay, and then I'm just gonna glue my adhesive, or my Bermuda Bay onto the Night of Navy. And then I'm going to put my torn piece. Doesn't really matter which way. But I want to make sure that it is far enough over that you can see it and line it up edge to edge. So I'm actually going to do this first. Whoops. Come on. Oh no. No, there's still, odd. All right, so that ran out. Oh my goodness, I'm having adhesive problems today. There we go. Okay, so then I'm just going to place this right on the very edge. To the very edge. Now it's not going to matter that you can see this adhesive line because this is going to cover it. Okay, so then I'm going to put this guy. When I have something that's been, has had water put on it, like watercolor paper or even the basic white paper, I kind of like to put a little bit more adhesive just so that it's not going to go anywhere or curl. Okay, so I've got this, and then I'm going to put my Dragonfly up on dimensionals. Now where it's got some adhesive, or oh my gosh, the embossing powder on it, you're not going to see how you're sticking it to your card. Sometimes when you're using either acetate or the vellum where you can see through it, you want to be a little bit more careful about where you're putting or how you're putting your adhesive on. So where the body is, I'm just going to add my dimensional, and then I'm going to stick it there, I think. Now I've got the epoxy gems. I've already colored them with my Bermuda Bay Stampin' Blend, which is the alcohol marker. So I'm just going to do the little teardrops right on the very bottom here. Actually, I'm going to do it this way so that they're on my take your pick tool the proper way. And I don't have to, whoops, there we go. And then we're going to do 3 at the top here as well. 1, 2, 3. All right. I absolutely love these clear gems because they are so easy to color with the Stampin' Blends. So I'm going to put that guy off to the side, and now I'm going to just add my sentiment. You know what? You're an inspiration. I haven't used that one yet, and I know exactly who's going to get this card. So because I've used the blues and the Bermuda Bay, and I want the sentiment to stand out a little bit, I'm just going to go ahead and stamp it in my Memento Black. I'm just going to stick that guy down just a little bit more, make sure that I've got my sentiment the right way up. And there we go. There's our card completely finished. So we've done a few different techniques today. We did the water background, we did the embossing on the vellum, and we colored the clear epoxy. Pop over to my Facebook page and let me know what you thought of this card. And if you do try this technique out yourself, let me know how it works. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit subscribe down below so you're notified every single time a new video goes live. And I hope you have a fabulous day.